Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Greece once again, and we've got another beer that I think will be really quite interesting to try. In fact, it's another brewery that I've never had anything from before and one of my favourite styles as well. A huge thank you in this video to my friend Gerekas who gave me this beer to try, and I think he knows that I like this style and that was one of the main reasons that he picked this one. So hopefully it's really good actually. For this review then we are going to go to the Athens area and we're having a taste of my first beer from Unibrau Hellas, but it might be Unibrau because the A in their symbol does have an umlaut on it, so it may well be that this company is called Unibrau Hellas. But this particular beer is the Alexander the Great, and it comes in at 6% ABV. This one is a Scotch ale, and this is the very first time that I've had a Scotch ale from Greece. As I've told you on the channel, I absolutely love reviewing Scotch ales from different places around the world. It's always cool to try my native beer style, if you like, from different places. I've had ones from New Zealand, Australia, a few different countries in Europe now, but probably the most unusual places that I've found this beer style would be in Japan, the Beard beer one that I reviewed for you a while back, and also the one from Cervejaria Bodebraun down in Brazil that Fabrizio gave me. That was a beautiful beer, that. So yeah, it's a style that I always enjoy reviewing, and it's cool to see that there is one being brewed in Greece. I don't know if this is the only example of this style in Greece, so do let me know about that in the comments section below. But very curious to see how it turns out, and hopefully this is another good beer. I've always been impressed with the standard of the Greek beers so far actually. It always tends to be the case that countries that are very good when it comes to winemaking, when they try their hand at craft beer, it often goes well for them. Slovenia is a very good example, Italy, Spain, Portugal, you know, there's some really good kind of craft beers out there in the wine countries. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Unibrau Hellas. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Greek beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Unibrau Hellas, and I will say that there wasn't too much information available on these guys. So Unibrau Hellas were apparently founded back in 2012, and mainly this is an import company that brings different beers into Greece from different places across the world. A lot of the beers that you'll find on their website are listed as there's Belgian ones, there's Czech ones, German, a lot of English beer as well, and a good few American things too. But from what I understand, they also import like home brewing supplies and stuff like that as well. But this particular brand of beer that they do is contract brewed. They started brewing these beers back in around 2015 from what I understand, and they chose the name Alexander the Great, which is obviously after the Macedonian king that was, I think he was like 3rd or 4th century or something like that, and Macedon, the kingdom of Macedon, was part of Greece at that time. There's that whole thing going on about, you know, North Macedonia and Greece and all of this kind of thing. There's that big argument there. But these beers are contract brewed at the Elixis brewery, which you can find to the north of Athens, and this company itself is headquartered in the Gerekas area in the northeastern part of the city of Athens as well. Athens is massive. When you go and look out over it, the thing just goes on forever pretty much. I do remember that. But other than that, there wasn't really too much information available on Unibrau. I couldn't find out who the owners of the company were or anything like that. When I looked at the Facebook page, there was a woman there who was obviously the manager of the company too, but I couldn't find out who the actual owners of this company were. That was a kind of interesting thing. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about Unibrau Hellas for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, although there wasn't much in the way of information on the company in there. They've got a good list of products, though. You can have a look at that. If you're watching from Greece and you need some supplies, then I guess that probably is a good place to go. I'm not sure whether you should consider it as an online beer shop or whether it is more a kind of wholesale supplier, if you like. But you can follow these guys on Facebook and Instagram. It's probably a good information source for Greek people about different beers and things like that as well. And you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages for this brewery as well. They only have two different beers, and that's this one, the original Scotch ale, and then they've got another one which is called Alexander the Great, the Dark, if you like. So that one I think was a porter beer, around the same alcohol percentage as this. But yeah, that's all I can tell you just now. Let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one. As I mentioned earlier, this beer brand is named after Alexander the Great, who was the king of Macedon. Yeah, like 3rd, 4th century, 300s, 400s kind of thing. That was his sort of era, if you like. But yeah, nicely presented beer, this one. I do like the fact that it's the sculpture. This beer seems to have had, when I looked on, when I found a newspaper article, it had a list of a load of different Greek breweries in it, which was quite cool. But the picture of this that they had a different artwork on it, which is interesting. It does give you a little bit of a tasting note on the back as well, so that's kind of cool. And I guess that's one of the things with it coming from you know, an import company, if you like. It's probably they're trying to teach people about different beers and things like that. But overall, you know, really nice presentation on this one. And as I say, just very curious to see how you know, how a Greek Scotch ale turns out. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm hoping that this one behaves itself when we open it up. Yeah, carbonation's going to behave itself on that. As you would have seen a few videos back, one of the Greek beers that Gerekas gave me kind of exploded. So I had to pause the video and edit it together, but this one seems to be behaving itself. I think this beer is going to be pretty nice actually, yeah. Just need to watch the head behaves itself there. But there we go, that's quite a nice pour actually. So yeah, Alexander the Great behaved himself, but I'm sure Alexander didn't become great by behaving himself all the time. But yeah, as you can see, this one looks pretty nice actually. It's pretty much what you would expect from a Scotch ale in terms of colour. There's one or two little bits of sediment at the bottom there, just kind of floating around. But in terms of colour, if I shine the light through this one, it's a nice kind of it's a mix between ruby and mahogany, to be honest with you. It's more of a ruby, kind of chestnutty colour, I think. Maybe mahogany's not quite the right descriptor for this one, but you can see there's a nice 2/3 finger of a frothy, very light kind of beige. I don't know, is it right to say that that's an ivory coloured head? I'm really not sure. But one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it looks pretty much as you would expect from a Scotch ale. So yeah, one of the redder ones that you're going to find though. They can either be very dark and sort of mahogany-ish, or they can be a bit more red and chestnutty like this one. So yeah, one of the other things I should say about the Scotch ale, and I always say this when I review these beers, in Scotland this whole term Scotch ale, wee heavy, from my understanding, that's a term that was coined by the Americans when they took this beer style over to the US and started brewing it there. In Scotland we would always call these beers shillings. So you have the shilling series, which starts off around 40 shilling, and gradually as you go up the scale, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 shilling. Basically there was more. This shilling is all to do with the tax of the beer, and the shilling was what they used with pound sterling before it was decimalised. So the higher you go up that scale, the more malt you had in the beer, therefore there was more alcohol content, and hence you had to pay more tax on it. So we'll talk about which exact kind of shilling type this beer is as well, but normally the wee heavies that you'll get over in the States are somewhere around the 80, kind of 90 shilling mark. These are the big boozy beasts, but quite often the ones in America are heavier in alcohol than you'll find from the traditional Scottish examples. The traditional Scottish ones, of course, do tend to be a little bit more kind of toasty and well-fired compared with the American ones. The fruits are a little bit more medicinal in the Scottish ones, whereas they're a bit more sweet and juicy and things like that in the American ones too. So we'll need to comment on that a bit when we look at this beer. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. That smells really nice actually. The aroma of that is pretty damn authentic to a Scottish brewed Scotch ale, I have to say. That comes across really nicely. So what you're going to notice out of this beer straight away is that there's a nice kind of brown bready quality to it, and it's got a lot of brown sugar actually, which is nice. That really is pretty damn authentic, I have to say. Thumbs up to Unibrau Hellas for this one. They've done a nice job with this beer, I have to say. Yeah, so the brown sugars in this one, there's a little bit of a toasty quality to them. There's a little bit of that kind of treacly molasses kind of thing. You can smell that these sugars are big and syrupy and all just kind of mixed together. It does have a little bit of a sweeter caramel to it at the front of the nose, if you like, but to me this is a big syrupy brown sugary quality. Nice kind of brown bready notes in there. It's almost a little bit kind of rye-ish. It's almost as if there's a little bit of rye bread kind of forming the base of this one. But on top of that, you've got a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original sort of note in there. There is a little bit of that kind of sweeter brown sugar as well. On the hoppy side of things, I would say that this beer, it's probably English hops that are in this one, something like Bramling's Cross going by the aroma. You can pick up a nice little bit of earthiness there, which is what you'd expect. There's some of that more kind of herbal floral aromaticity and also a bit of a lighter grassiness, to be honest, as well. And I would say the green side of the hops, they lean a little bit more towards the kind of herbally, earthy side of things. But on the fruity side, there's a nice, there's definitely a nice little bit of a kind of figgy, raisiny quality to this one actually, which comes out across really well. So pay attention to that when you have a go at this beer. But in terms of the aroma, compared to the Scotch ales that I've come across before, this one comes across as being really quite authentic. There is maybe just a little bit of a sharpness in the beginning of the aroma here too, but overall a very, very nice smelling beer, this one. So we'll have a taste of it now and see how we get on. This one is the Alexander the Great Scotch Ale from Unibrau Hellas, based in Athens, a sort of gypsy contract brewer, I guess you could say. So let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, Skål, Yamas, thank you again to Gerekas for this beer. That's pretty good actually. Slightly different to what it's the way the flavours come out in this beer is quite interesting, and that's one of the things that you tend to notice about these beer styles. And I have noticed this with Scotch ales, and sometimes when you get other countries brewing German beers as well, you start to get this too. Quite often you'll get all of the flavours you expect from the beer, but they just come out in a slightly different way. And I mean, this has all the flavours you would expect of a Scotch ale, but they just come out in slightly different ways. And the beer, it's quite, in its mouthfeel, it's quite light, I think, compared to the ones that you would drink in Scotland. But that's nice. It gets a thumbs up from me, this one. I would definitely say, if we're talking about this in the general context of a Scotch ale, this one is pretty authentic to the Scottish side of things. It's more of like a Scottish brewed Scotch ale rather than an American one. And I would probably, to be honest, I would classify them as having two different sub-styles, to be honest. But this is a nice beer. If you like this style, then I think you will quite enjoy this one. If you like your sort of traditional English Scottish beers, then you will quite enjoy this. So yeah, let's try and break this down a little bit then. Straight away you're going to feel that nice brown bready quality just blanket the middle of your palate there. The further you go into the aftertaste, it does become a little bit more toasty and grainy. It's almost like it does have a little bit of a toasty bread crusty note to it, which is nice. In the very centre of your palate you've got a nice big, you definitely have a nice big sort of syrupy, kind of brown sugary kind of note, which is interesting. It's almost a little bit, it's almost just a little bit kind of dry and things as well, to be honest with you. You can really feel the brown sugar sort of drying out a little bit in the middle of the palate, which is quite interesting. I really like how that goes together. They really have that well-fired characteristic that you get in a Scottish brewed Scotch ale. They've managed to get that very well done authentically here. So as I say, thumbs up to this brewery. Quite often, you know, when it comes, I'm not sure how this beer was rated on Untappd, to be honest with you, but in terms of authenticity, these guys would get they would get a high rating from me. I think this is quite nice. If you compare this to what you would find, for example, from say Williams Brothers or you know, the Harveston Brewery, something like that. If you compare like this beer to what you would get from one of the more traditional Scottish craft breweries, then this one, it wouldn't look out of place, let's just say that. But yeah, in the centre of your palate there is a little bit of a very toasty, well-fired caramel to this one, but you can feel the darker brown sugars just sort of coming out from that as well. There's not really a biscuity quality to this one. I would say the middle of your palate really dries out and becomes a little bit more kind of grainy and things the further that you go into the aftertaste with this beer. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together actually. That's very nice. Yeah, the malt base in this is really pretty authentic. I've repeated that a few times though. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. It's definitely English hops that are in this beer. You can tell just from the way the earthiness comes out because it's that little bit darker. As you move further forward along the sides of your tongue, it evolves and becomes a little bit more kind of herbal, to be honest with you. Then at the front corners of the palate there's a little bit of a floral note there, and then round the very front curve of the palate it's just a little bit lighter and grassy. But I would say that the hoppy side of this beer leans towards that kind of more herbal earthiness, and that kind of suits the way that the malts come out in this beer. That earthiness that it has really helps bring out some of the grainy aspects of the beer further you go into the aftertaste. So behind the front curve of the tongue then, that's where you get that oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And for me, it's got some really nice kind of characteristics there. I like that the fruit on the fruity side of this beer, there's a little bit of a I would say that it has a sort of it's interesting that because it has a little bit of a sort of sharpness in the beginning. There is a little bit of a slightly raisiny sharpness there, then it just kind of comes out a little bit, and it's almost got a little bit of a kind of phenolic medicinal quality as well. There is a little bit of that in here, and you might be forgiven for thinking there is a little bit of like a charred cakey kind of flavour at the front of the palate with this beer too. There's maybe some woody undertones in the kind of flavour that you get here as well, but that fruity note, as I say, it's quite sharp, and there's a little bit of sharpness there in the beginning, some raisiny notes, but then it just smooths out and becomes a little bit more kind of figgy, and you could be forgiven for thinking that the further you go into the aftertaste you start to get a little bit more of a you start to get a little bit of a kind of blackberry, blackcurrant kind of thing out of this one. But yeah, if we compare this one to other shilling beers, I would guess that this one's maybe around the sort of 60 shilling mark. I think 60 shilling, maybe 70 at a push. It's somewhere kind of around there, I think. It's definitely not an 80 or 90. It's not quite big and boozy enough, if you like, to reach that kind of side of things. But I would say probably around a 60-70 shilling is probably a good home for this beer, to be honest with you. But in terms of authenticity, I think they've done a nice job of this one, so thumbs up to Unibrau for this one. They've done a nice job of this beer. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer is definitely mid-bodied. Yeah, mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is very, very smooth. That's one of the other things about this beer that's interesting, is that the level of smoothness that you have out of this one, it's almost like a German beer in that way. But at the same time, it does remind me a little bit of the cask beers that you get in the traditional ones, the pump kegs that you get, or pump cask rather I should say, that you get in England mainly. So that's kind of unusual about this one. So a nice yeah, that mouthfeel kind of gives it that, is probably what's helping it feel a little bit more kind of traditionally Scottish, if you like. But overall I would say the beer, it's a little bit lighter and wetter, to be honest with you, and when it's from a hot country like Greece, you can kind of understand that they want their beers to have a little bit of drinkability, I guess you could say. Malt base, smooth but also a bit toasty, I would say. Good little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think maybe we're talking about 50 IBUs in this beer, and that's both from the malt base and from the hoppy side of things. Yeah, I think about 50 IBUs with this beer. But with the fruity side of things as well, it's got a little bit of sharpness in the beginning, and then it just becomes a little bit more juicy in the aftertaste. But overall, a really interesting beer, this one, and I was glad I was able to review this for you. So again, a huge thank you to Gerekas for making this review possible. My first Greek Scotch ale actually, and it's turned out to be pretty damn nice. So yeah, if you like this style, then have a go at this. I'm not sure how widely available this beer is throughout Greece. But if if there are other Scotch ales in Greece as well, do let me know about those. But let's just leave it at that. Pardon me, getting a bit of gas out of it. But yeah, an interesting take on the Scotch ale, very authentic from Unibrau, a company that are, more about importing beer rather than brewing their own. But they've done a nice beer with this one, so hats off to them for that. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Unibrau Hellas as well. Hopefully I can review the other Alexander the Great beer at some point, and hopefully I can review a few more Scotch ales from Greece. That would be really cool. But the standard of Greek beer is very, very good, and I would recommend that you check out some of these breweries, of course, because there's some very, very interesting stuff coming out from these guys. So yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys again very soon. Make sure you check out the Alexander the Great Scotch ale from Unibrau Hellas, based in Athens, but brewed under contract at Elixis Brewery. So yeah, Slàinte, Skull, thank you again for watching. If Raristo, yeah, mass. Cheers.